Yes. Okay, we'll start here. Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining today's peer connection on a remarkable life after SCI. First, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we all live and work on the traditional territories of many indigenous nations across Turtle Island. While we met today on a virtual platform, we must recognize the importance of the land and our treaty agreements. We acknowledge that ancestral and unceded territory of all Inuit, Métis, and First Nation peoples. And as our spinal cord injury Ontario community encompasses many geographies, we ask that everyone take a few moments of their day to find out which unceded or treaty territories you may live and work on. You can use the link www.native-land.ca to learn more. And for those who don't know us, our peer program works to connect clients with a new spinal cord injury to those who have years of lived experiences with an SCI. And all of us on the peer program team are individuals with spinal cord injury. So I got my T5 to T7 injury almost 10 years ago from a sports accident. And I'm using a manual wheelchair, and I started a family after the injury, and now I'm living with my family in Toronto, North Shore. And now I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Rick.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that intro. And my name is Rick Waters. I'm with the Peer Support Program, and I have a spinal cord injury as well. Mine is a C456 incomplete. I was originally diagnosed as a complete injury way back in 1978 when I had my injury. So doing the math, that's 44 years ago. So I was a youngster at 16 when I had my injury. So I've lived a lot of life since then and had a lot of experience with spinal cord injury. So I hope to be able to share it with some of you. And I look forward to hearing from the amazing Wendy, who's going to be our keynote speaker today. And I believe, Wendy, you have a video that we can play?
Yeah.
All right. Did you want to get, can we get a little bit of an intro? I would introduce you, but I think you could do a better job at it if you want to.
Hi, I'm Wendy Murphy. I had sustained my spinal cord injury in 1984. So my math is 38 years or 38 years, sorry. And I have written a book, and I've gone on to, I modeled and did some broadcasting, and all to make a difference for people with spinal cord injury. So I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm so happy that you've all joined us, and I'm looking forward to sharing my story.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And before we start, there's just a bit housekeeping I would like to say. So as you will see, today's presentation is being recorded. You can change your name as it appears on your screen. Should you not wish your full name to be appear, just please simply edit it as you wish. If you need assistance with that, please reach out using the chat function if you wish. And after the presentation, there will be a question and answer opportunity. And any question you can submit using that chat function, or please click the raise hand icon to unmute and ask your question out loud. And yes, that's all. And yeah, please feel free to type your question anytime in the chat box, and we can answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
I don't know who's sharing the video. The person sharing the video would need to be made co-host, please.
I can't stay on because I have to start my daughter's care, but I just wanted to come say hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
But I do have to go because I got to start Andrea's care. But I just wanted to come say hi and see how everyone was.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Rick, can you make Wendy co-host as well?
Hopefully everyone has a good night.
Thank you, you too. Rick, you are muted.
Sorry, yes, I'm just queuing up getting Wendy the access. So sorry about that, folks. Is it okay? So it's just Wendy and there we go. I think you should have it now.
Did you want me to play the video?
Yes, I've just made you co-host. So
No,
you
but
should be able
I gave it all to Lubna. I don't have the
to
video.
Oh, I'm sorry. So she's in transit. So perhaps we could just you could talk about your experience and we could have a discussion. And if we can get the video from Lubna before the end of the session, we'll play that.
Okay,
Does that
sure.
sound like a good plan?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about the technical issues. We're having a little of our own pain from the storm today. Because
I know, isn't that lovely? Quite a dump.
yeah. So Lubna's stuck on Wheel-Trans, and she's got some of the information that would be helpful, but it's no problem. We've got the real person with Wendy right here to talk to us about her experiences.
Okay,
to-
well, my life took a turn in August of 1984. I was on a camping trip. We decided, I had been on the camping trip months earlier in the summer. My life was perfect at the time, as far as I thought. I was working at Domtar. Domtar's a large organization. They have divisions and chemicals, packaging, and construction. I was in the construction division at the time. Post-secondary school was optional back then, so I hadn't gone to post-secondary school yet. But yeah, I had a great job. I was on top of the world as far as friends and happiness overall. And we decided to go camping to Shirkston Beach. It was the second trip to the beach. And yeah, it was the long weekend. August 6th, we were on our way home from Shirkston, and the driver unfortunately lost control of the vehicle. So the van rolled approximately 3 or 4 times before coming to a complete stop. We had stopped actually in Fort Erie for some pizza beforehand, and I climbed into the back of the van and laid down on a mattress. And my best friend Grania was in the front seat with the driver Don, and none of us were wearing seatbelts. It wasn't a law that was enforced back then, so none of us had seatbelts on at the time. So I was thrown through the sliding door. Actually, we had complained about most of the weekend because it kept opening and it wasn't jamming. And when the van rolled, the point of impact, the door flew off and threw me out. So I was ejected from the van, and my best friend Grania went through the windshield. So I guess the ambulance came and I was rushed to Queensway Hospital. And it was the closest emergency hospital for me. And Grania was taken to, I believe it was the Etobicoke General Hospital. She was bleeding quite badly. And it was a hospital that specialized in blood transfusion, so they took her there. So my family came to the hospital, and I guess the nurses and doctors came out and told them that they had good news and bad news. And the good news was that I was conscious and alert and talking. And the bad news was that they believed that it was a spinal cord injury. So from there, I was shipped to Toronto Western Hospital. And Toronto Western Hospital specializes in neurosurgery at the time. So they thought that that would be the best place for me. So unfortunately, my left lung had collapsed, and So they put me in intensive care. So I was put in intensive care for almost 2 weeks, and I was rolled, I guess, constantly, just to make sure that I didn't get any bed sores. And as far as the x-ray showed, my spinal cord was severed, so they didn't think that there'd be any more damage to do. And when they brought me into surgery, they opened me up and the spinal cord wasn't severed, it was compressed. So the surgery took about 10 hours. And yeah, it was, I guess the bone fragments were in the spine, and they had to be very meticulous with what they did to try to preserve the spinal cord. So it was a daunting time, I guess, when I came through. And it was, yeah, I guess it was then that I learned of my best friends dying, and that really took me aback. And I guess my recovery was delayed because I was in such mourning for some time with the loss of her. And I guess at a time that I would need her the most. But the general hospital, there was my left leg was badly injured as well. So that was something that had to have surgery as well. But there was a point in my life then that I didn't really want to go on. And I guess then I moved over to Lyndhurst, and there was a lot. I guess accidents are usually seasonal. Lyndhurst is a hospital that specializes in spinal cord injuries, as most of you know. So I was, they were hopeful to get me a bed there, and it took quite a while. I was in the general hospital for 2 months. And I remember I couldn't sit up or anything. I was laid flat on my back at the time because they had put Harrington rods in my back. So my injury, I guess when I was thrown out of the van, I bounced. So T9 and L1 were injured. And the Harrington rods went down my back to stabilize those vertebrae. So in the general hospital, I had to lay flat for most of the duration that I was there. And I remember at one point when the bed came free at Lyndhurst, they put me on a balancing board and slowly elevated me because I was lying flat for so long. And then I moved to Lyndhurst, which was a breath of fresh air initially, because I guess in the general hospital, being in the general hospital for 2 months, well, hospitals they're not very welcoming to begin with. And looking at green walls and just so limited in terms of what I could do. I was bedridden most of the time that I was there. So my trip to Lyndhurst, I remember when I first got to Lyndhurst, it was such a refreshing and uplifting feeling because just the foyer itself was so welcoming. And so I was there. I was at Lyndhurst then for, back then it was different back then because it wasn't part of UHN, Universal Health Network. It was more of a lodge at the time. And I was there actually for a total of 5 months, just in terms of the rehab there. And at the time, Lyndhurst was, I was there to learn my independence. And back then it was mostly trauma. Most of the people there were trauma. And again, it was a seasonal time. So the majority of injuries were diving accidents because it was summer. So most of the people there had broken their neck, a large majority of the people anyway. There were a few motorcycle accidents and water skiing accidents, but it was a very communal time for me, just in terms of the camaraderie. And I guess we all sort of shared something so unique in terms of the spinal cord injury. So we really bonded in terms of the friendships that we made and the camaraderie that we had with each other. But it was really a learning tool as well. My family proved to be incredibly supportive. I know that they started taking me home actually on weekends, which was a huge eye opener. I can see, or I could see then, how people could get institutionalized quite easily because you get so, well, the grounds and the whole hospital were so accessible that when you went out into the real world, you really faced challenges. So I was fortunate enough to sort of see that firsthand with my family taking me home on weekends. So it was a really emotional time. Funny enough, I wanted to go home because to get me out of the hospital setting, but at the same time, it was emotional for me because I knew what I was going to face come discharge. But again, family and friends proved incredibly supportive at the time. And Lyndhurst was great, just in terms of the rehab that they offered. And from there, I was there 5 months. And my family bought a new home. We were living in a split level home at the time. So there were stairs, levels all over the house. So my family bought a new home and put an elevator in it actually for me. So to give me full access to the house. And that was a marvelous gesture on their part. I remember one of the social workers, I guess, suggested at one point to my family that I was at an age that I could live alone if I wanted to. And it scared me because emotionally I wasn't ready for that, but I didn't want to put my family or give them the burden of having to find a place that was accessible for me. So I was very elated and felt very blessed to have their support. So Lyndhurst was definitely a learning tool for me. And again, we'd all gather, have discussions in the evening. And it really, I guess, we all shared again something that was so special in terms of understanding each other. Because when I was with my family, of course, they had no idea really the struggles that I was going through. But so yeah, my stay at Lyndhurst was 5 months. And after the family purchased the new home, I moved home and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. My job, my company, Domtar, had offered me my job back, but I wasn't ready. I actually went into the office one day and it was a learning tool for me. And I guess the environment that I controlled suddenly controlled me, because of the filing cabinets were high and the access wasn't the greatest at all. So emotionally, it took a toll, but I decided, and the people treated me, I don't know, sort of empathetically. And I felt too different to go back. It was too emotionally draining for me. So I decided not to go back to my job. So I took about a year off. I didn't know, again, I guess finding Wendy, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my family, again, being very supportive. Then I decided I'd go back to school. And so I went back to college initially. And I took business because of the practice that I was in before. So I took, so that was again a learning tool, and adapting and getting used to access issues. And we have to remember that this was 38 years ago, so access was a huge issue and a problem. And so was seeing people out in public. I mean, today you see wheelchairs everywhere, but back in my day, or when this originally happened, you rarely saw people out in public. You rarely saw anyone in a wheelchair. And so emotionally, people would stare at me all the time. And it was very disconcerting. And so I ended up going back to school and took business. And I was listening to the radio one morning, and I heard a woman on the radio that had started an agency for modeling. And I thought about modeling because I felt through exposing the issue, if young children picked up magazines and catalogs and turned on TV, I thought, that they wouldn't be so shocked and astonished by seeing me out in public. So I thought that would be a good route to go. And I tried to write letters. I had modeled when I was younger. I took modeling courses. My parents put us through everything. So I took piano and figure skating and everything. But modeling was one of the things that we took, my sister and I. So I thought about writing a letter to the modeling agency that I was with, but I thought, what would she do with me? So this one morning, I was getting ready for school, and I heard a woman on the radio on Chum FM. And she had started an agency for the disabled. So I couldn't believe it. I was very happy to hear it. And so I ended up calling her, and she asked me to send her in some pictures, and I did that. And then I went for some headshots, 8x10 pictures of myself from the shoulders up. That's what a headshot is. And I went and got some headshots done, and I sent them to her. And I think the timing was right. And I also felt very blessed to be in Canada, because we're a multicultural society, and mainstreaming has always been sort of the way that we practice. So I felt very, very gifted that I was in Canada, because I know the States, well, in my endeavors in modeling and stuff, I just saw a lot of differences. So my first job was with the Hudson Bay Company. And I modeled jeans, Levi jeans. And it was a wonderful experience, and I couldn't believe it was happening, actually. It was, yeah, the experience was wonderful, and I guess things sort of snowballed for me. Once Hudson Bay, I give them credit too, because they were the first company to do it. But once they started doing it, I guess all the other large department stores started to sort of follow suit. So, I mean, I went from the Hudson Bay to Eaton's to Simpson's to Sears. They were all using us, and I was busy. And yeah, there was a lot of work. And then I guess after that, commercial roles came, and I was actually on the TV series Street Legal for 2 years. Had a small acting role on that as a courtroom stenographer. But things just evolved, and again, timing was wonderful. And I guess my biggest feat was I went to a pageant. My agent had one of her clients in the pageant, and she wanted me to. I ended up not planning to, but I ended up joining in on the fun, and I ended up winning the pageant. So I represented Canada in my wheelchair, which I guess was one of my biggest feats as far as the modeling goes. So then I thought, how can I get a job or a career? How can I make a career out of this and expose the issue in a bigger way? So I ended up going back to school, went back to Ryerson part-time. And by that time, I remember at one point with my modeling and everything that I was doing, a lot of it, I got a lot of press because of my accomplishments. And so there was a point where I ended up, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So you were mentioning that you had gone back to school to decide what to do, like you were going back to Ryerson after the modeling and trying to figure out what to do from there.
That's right. Thank you. Thanks, Rick. So I decided, again, I went into radio and television there. And there was, at one point I got asked by CTV Sports to go skiing and to represent, I guess I wanted to promote mono skiing. I'm not sure if any of you have done mono skiing or have heard of it, but it's a single ski, and you sit on a spring and there's a bucket. So you sit in the bucket and you have outriggers, and the outriggers have little skis on them. So you go down the hill and it's pretty scary. But my mother thought I was crazy because as an able-bodied person in grade 7, I broke my leg skiing at one of the smallest hills in Ontario. So my mother was petrified when she heard that I was going to do this. But I did go to, I did end up representing the disabled community for CTV Sports. So I guess I had tapes, and I had done some work with YTV as well. So my feat was what I really wanted to work at City TV because I knew that it was the exposure would be great, and I also knew that they had minorities, and so I was a guest on a lot of the shows, breakfast television, movie television, just with my success again with the modeling and everything that I was doing. So I really wanted a job there, and so I got a tape together, and I ended up sending in packages, press packages, and I sent to Jay Levine, who was the producer of fashion television, and I knew Jeannie Becker well because of my modeling. So Jay Levine ended up calling me and told me that he didn't have anything for me, but that he passed my press kit on to Moses Neimer. So at one point I thought that's great because I had the tape ready. So I thought I'd get everything together and send something out to him. And the secretary ended up calling me actually before I did this. So I did get a meeting with Moses Neimer, and he was sort of the innovator of television. And I guess it was his vision in terms of minorities and all of that. So I guess when he saw my press kit, he was very intrigued already. So I brought my tape to him, and I guess the rest was history. I did get a job there, and I hosted what was called Wendy's Video Diary for 8 years. So I did, my beat was community events, and I did milestones, wedding anniversaries, 50th wedding anniversaries, 100th birthdays. I'll never forget Minnie. Minnie was 100 years old, and she looked younger than her granddaughters, and she was full of life. But it was a wonderful experience, and yeah, it was great. It was great to have the opportunity to do it, and that's that. But I do have my book. I've written a book, Wendy Murphy's Law, and I have. I'm going to read you some of the some excerpts from it. Is Lumna here yet?
I think she's still in transit, Wendy.
Okay.
So it'd be great to hear some reading.
I do have a PowerPoint though that I can see if I can share here. Okay, just give me a
Okay.
second.
So what inspired you to write the book, Wendy?
Well, a lot of people told me that I should write a book, and I guess when I really sat down to do it, Rick, it was a time to reflect. I think that we get so busy every day in our day-to-day lives that we don't really see how far we've come or what we've done in life. And sometimes to sort of sit back and reflect, it's a good learning tool for people, and can inspire us just in terms of personally. So I thought I also wanted to inspire people. It's the whole reason why I got into television and why I did all the modeling, and to expose the issue, to make things right or better for people with disabilities. Because again, when I was back in 1984, when this initially happened, you really didn't see people with disabilities out in public the way that you do today. And I'm elated to see, the transition, and I'm very happy about it all.
That's terrific. You certainly have lived a remarkable life, and I look forward to hearing some of the book. Um, uh, I think we've shared a lot of the same journey because for me, my injury was in 78 and you were in 84, so not that far apart. And yeah, I went through a lot of the same things that you did, where people were not as inclusive back then. And we were more of an anomaly when we were out in society or out in the public. So you have to put up with the stare.
Yeah, you remember that, do you? You're muted.
Oh yes, I remember that, and I guess I got used to it, but I think things have gotten better, and people society is more accepting of a broader range of individuals rather than just kind of stereotyping everybody. So
Oh,
I think there's
absolutely. And
yeah.
a potential, I mean, just in terms of the potential is recognized. And I mean, we could do almost anything today. Look at DavidOnnelly, God bless him.
Yes, exactly. And we have some tremendous trailblazers like David and Rick Hansen and yourself that have done remarkable things and really inspire other people to pick up the torch and go ahead and live their own life in an inspired way. So
Absolutely.
thank you for that. So if Lubna's not ready with the PowerPoint, we could go into a reading if you want to go
Sure.
ahead with that, Wendy.
I have the PowerPoint here. You want me to share the screen right now? I can share the. Can everyone see it?
Yeah, I can see that. So that's great visuals. Are you still with us there, Wendy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to describe what we're seeing?
Sure.
We see an early version of you, I think.
Yes, you do. If only we could freeze time, Rick.
Yeah, I know. I can relate.
This picture was taken with Franco. I was a model with Franco Marabelli, and I was usually put in his press kit. So that was an outfit with Franco for Franco Marabelli.
Oh, nice.
That was for my portfolio. I needed to do a comp card, and you're supposed to put different looks on it. So that was one of my modeling for my comp card, my composition card.
Whoa, looking good.
Now these are base shots. So there was yeah, modeling sweaters and blue jeans.
And what age would you have been around that time?
Probably around maybe 25.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
These would be the bay. These would be the bay.
Yeah.
The one with all the kids is back to school shot. And the one
Right.
in the middle with me in the denim is my first bay shot.
Yeah, terrific. You are a celebrity.
Hardly.
Maybe we could do now from here, you could do a reading from your book, and then we could open up the floor for some questions, because I'm sure some people would love to talk to you.
Yeah. In my hospital room, the machines hummed and clicked. Now that Nancy was gone, I began to feel very uncomfortable. The machines seemed to become louder. My breaths were shallow, and with each one I took, I could feel a very sharp pain down my left side. The tube down my throat made breathing very difficult, swallowing almost impossible. There was little I could do to move myself in the bed in an attempt to make myself more comfortable. The pain became unbearable. My legs were raised on pillows while my body was leaning to one side with more pillows propped behind me. This offered better support than lying flat in the bed would have, but it was still far from relaxing. Seemingly out of nowhere, a female figure was standing beside my bed, a nurse. I turned to her in the hope of an explanation. Feeling weak and very groggy, questions went around and around in my head. Where am I thought. What's happened to me? Where are Grania and Dawn? But before I could think of any more questions, there was a slight poke to my right arm, and I drifted back to sleep. I woke this time to a loudspeaker paging a doctor to the emergency room. I could feel that the breathing apparatus had been removed from my mouth, and I saw that I had been moved to a private room. I was feeling more comfortable with my breathing and swallowing, although the pain down my left side remained very intense. It limited my breathing and restricted any movement of my arms or body in general. The numbness in my lower extremities remained the same. When I tried to sit up, the pain prohibited me from moving much at all. I glanced around to see if anything looked close to familiar, but there was nothing. The room appeared sterile and cold. Not long after I woke, a nurse entered the room. "Good morning, Wendy," she said. "Good morning," I replied, groggy and somewhat dazed. "I'm Karen," she said with a smile. "You've had a lot of people worried about you for some time now. I know they'll be glad to see that you're more alert and responsive." Just as she finished her sentence, my father and mother entered the room looking cautious and concerned. All those questions started filtering through my mind again. What had happened to bring me to the hospital? What had put me in such a questionable state, lying in a hospital bed in such pain? More importantly, where were Grania and Dawn? "Mom, Dad, what's happened?" I cried out. My father was the first to speak, which didn't surprise me. He had a more judicious approach when faced with serious issues, and there was no doubt such ability was needed now. "There's been an accident, Wendy," he said with his concern obvious on his face. "You've been here in the hospital for almost 2 weeks." 2 weeks? That can't be. Well, what's happened? Why can't I remember anything? My mind was racing with more questions. "Wendy, the van you were driving in left the road at a high speed. Don apparently did his best to bring it back onto the highway, but it was going too fast. We believe it rolled over 4 or 5 times before it came to a complete stop." "But Grania," I yelled. "What about Grania and Dawn?" Immediately, I knew there was something very wrong. My mother's eyes welled with tears, and she took my hand as my father continued. "Dawn's fine, Wendy, but Grania, well, dear, Grania didn't make it." The room began to spin and my breaths became shallower. The pain down my left side was intense and my mind began to race. What did he mean she didn't make it? How could that be? It felt like just yesterday we were spending long days in the sun at the beach, days filled with fun and adventure. This just couldn't be happening. Suddenly, I felt pulled into an unbelievable reality. My father pointed out that we had neglected to fasten our seatbelts. A law enacted but not strictly enforced. At that moment, I started to question all that we did and we didn't do. Suddenly, my fate became a question. "Mom, Dad," I said in tears, "my legs, they're numb. I've been doing my best to move them, but I can't. Have they used some type of anesthetic to keep me comfortable?" The expression on their faces was sobering. I immediately knew something was seriously wrong, a more permanent diagnosis perhaps. "At this point, we'll have to leave your fate up to time," my mother began. Witnesses reported that you were also thrown from the vehicle. The side door released from the hinges and you were ejected and landed on your back. Honey, there's been spinal cord damage.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, Wendy. That's sounds like very emotional stuff for you, but it does bring back some emotions for myself as well, and I'm sure others, because I do recall my experience going through ICU and being very scared and confused at the time.
It was
And,
very cathartic to write, that's for sure.
yes, I would imagine so. So perhaps we can open up the floor and allow some of the folks that might have some questions to join the conversation. Let's see.
We have a question from Lyndhurst.
Yeah, okay.
How old were you when the accident happened?
Actually, I was 18. I was 18 and my birthday was a month later. And my first legal beer was prescribed. My doctor sent me a beer.
That's a good prescription.
It was the best one that I had the whole time I was there.
Thank you. Any other questions?
What does she do now?
What do you do now?
What do I do now? Very good question. Right now, I am a part-time certified health coach. I coach actually people with disabilities. And I'm a peer support as well. And I am on the board of directors for March of Dimes Canada. And yeah, that keeps me busy.
For sure. Thank you.
For the past year, 2021, 2022, 2023, Wendy has been recognized as the most outstanding peer mentor in the Toronto region on behalf of Spinal Cord Injury Ontario. So she does wonderful work with us. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Is that you, Lumna?
Yeah, I'm still far away from home, but I put a link to Wendy's book in the chat. For those who are interested, there's a link to Wendy's book in the chat too.
Oh, terrific. Is your book available in hard copy and soft copy?
Yes, it is. And it's the easiest way to get it is on Amazon.
Okay, terrific. That's awesome. And how long would you say it took you to write the book?
Almost 2 years.
Wow.
Almost 2
Yeah.
years and dedicated.
Yeah.
And we have another question in the chat box. John asked, how long after your injury did you write the book?
Oh, I just wrote the book in 2019.
So you had a lot to share at that point.
Lots to share.
Yeah, you lived a long life at that point.
The next question from Lyndhurst is, are you planning on writing another book?
I don't know that I would. It was a lot of work and a lot of editing and a lot of commitment. And I don't consider myself an author, so to speak, or to write my story was something that I was really, really heartfelt about. And I don't know that novels are up my alley. And maybe in a few years, I'd write another book about what I'm doing now. But yeah, never say never, I guess.
Never say never. Thank you.
And we have another comment in the chat box from Stacy. I'm a new spinal cord injury patient and I want to be more involved in advocacy or visibility. What would you advise or suggest as a way to start?
Get out there with organizations that you believe in, and I guess know your focus in terms of what you want to do. And you've got to narrow things down, sort of make a list, and then take the proper steps from there.
One more question from Lyndhurst. Do you have a family of your own?
I don't. Won't even commit to a cat.
Thank you.
All of us here at Lyndhurst are new spinal cord injury patients. What advice would you give us as we graduate from here?
Did you hear the question?
Absolutely. And in my book, I stress, God bless my father. My father really walked me through. I mean, my whole family was good, but my dad was good at, he had a rule, and it was a 1 day at a time rule. So you take 1 day at a time. You don't jump ahead or jump behind. You don't look back. You live in the moment and take it one day at a time. So, and follow your dreams. I mean, look at what I was able to accomplish. So, I mean, they don't have to be big. They can be getting up and being productive every day, you know, whether it even be just around the house and with your family. You know, you're needed. So it doesn't, they don't have to be big dreams. They just have to be productive, and don't let the setback define you. You know,
Wendy,
Yeah.
I'm happy you said that your father encouraged you to take it one day at a time. That's my, I'm from Linders, Letton Island Road. I of that philosophy of taking it one day at a time. Because when I tell everybody, when they ask me, how are you dealing with it? How are you going to deal with it? I said, when I get to that bridge, I'll cross it.
Yes.
It's dead and gone. Today is what I'm thinking about.
Today is all you're worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow will fall into place, and when tomorrow comes, I will deal with it. So I'm happy.
Good for you. Yeah, you're doing it right. You're on the right track.
That is my philosophy. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. Taking things one day at a time, because things can certainly feel overwhelming a lot of
I was
times.
very anxious at times, Rick, and my anxiety was twofold. And that's when my dad would sort of, you know, settle me down and tell me, you know, that it's one day at a time. Today is, what is it? Yeah, yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery. Today is the present. It's a gift, you know. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a similar experience leaving the hospital. I was in the hospital for 9 months, and then 3 months of just going back and forth between home and the hospital. But yeah, I was definitely institutionalized. I felt anxiety, a little bit of panic when I was leaving the hospital. And part of it was, as you mentioned before, you don't have all your lifelines in place anymore. You're kind of out in the community, and you
you're
have
lost
to,
fish. Yeah.
yeah, you got to utilize whatever resources you have available to you. And my dad was a big part of that as well for my recovery. He was at the hospital a lot when I was in hospital, and he built a ramp for the family house, and he did a lot of my personal care in the beginning.
That's lovely.
So, yeah.
Well, I always say, Rick, you're a product of your environment. So if it's encouraging and warm and loving, it reflects on you.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of the things I like about the peer program, because not everybody has the same advantages in life, and we all have different experiences, and we can draw on each other's energy and life experiences to live a better life. So
And understand each other better too, Rick.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. And do we have any other questions at this point?
Yes, we have another one. What are some of the things you're looking forward to or have goals of doing in the future?
Actually, my one goal that I don't share with everyone is I'd like the book to be made into a movie.
Hey,
So that's one goal.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good goal to have.
That's a good goal to have. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you keep in touch with your media contacts?
Most of them have gone. Like, they're not really in media anymore.
Right.
It's been a while.
So you're gonna have to get back out there and hustle to get your movie made.
There you go, Rick.
Yeah. All right. Are
Yeah.
there others, Sherry?
Yeah, we have Lubna's question following to the previous one. Who would you like to play you in the movie then?
People keep asking me that. I said Reese Witherspoon.
Good choice. And who would you want to play opposite you in the movie?
I haven't thought about that one.
Okay, there's something to think about.
It is Rick.
Yeah. So, yeah,
The
any,
comments from the chat box. Stacy said, wonderful advice. Don't let the setbacks define you, and it's difficult initially. And we have another comment in the chat box. YouTube is helpful for some, and other platforms that allow video line, Facebook. Yes, that's so far a question in the chat box. Do you have any other questions? from
yeah,
leaders?
I like the point about, you know, don't let the setbacks define you, because it's very relevant for the folks that are newly injured to know that. And it's also a common theme among successful people. And
Yes,
most successful people go through lots of setbacks, and they don't let them define them. They learn by them. So they use them as learning opportunities. So by switching your thinking around from, you know, oh, this is all happening to me, and or this went wrong, and I've failed, rather like look beyond it, and how can I do it better? How can I
how can
get
I
around
improve
this?
this? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yes,
Yeah.
absolutely use it as wisdom. I mean, that's why as we get older, we become wiser, because it's our our obstacles and our challenges and the things, our failures, that really bring us some wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We
And
have
do you
a
have
new
any?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a new question in the chat box. What
Great.
tools or resources would you recommend for writing a book?
Okay, first of all, be dedicated. Be dedicated, because I mean, when I initially started the book, I mean, I was every day in front of my computer, and so dedication and a good editor, because I was diarrhea of the fingers in terms of writing it initially. So you put everything into it, and then a good editor will help you sort of narrow it down to the story that you're trying to share.
Great, thank you. And we have another comment in the chat box. Let's see. Yep. Oh, how many of you find that you stay up late into the morning hours?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think that is a sleep-related question, and
Okay.
that's a great question for the peer team, but offline maybe. Some of us could reach back to this individual and talk about how we manage our sleep disturbances.
And do you have any other words of wisdom to share before we conclude, Wendy?
Just always move forward. Don't stagnate, and try to think positive. One thing that I do, and my family laughs at me, because in every situation, I don't look at the negative, I look at the positive. And then you can find a positive in absolutely every situation you find yourself in. Whether it's a flat tire, you can say it wasn't two flat tires. That's just to give you an example. I pull positives out of every situation that I have in my life. And when I'm having a bad day, I don't look at the bad, I look at the good, and draw from it. Because otherwise, I mean, you'll never get out of a rut.
Terrific. That's great advice. And I think we're just about right on time with our timing for ending the meeting, unless anyone has any other pressing questions. But I'd like to thank you, Wendy. You did a fantastic job of sharing your experiences. And I know that's what you do as a peer volunteer for us, which is tremendously appreciated. And you know, just keep plugging away because you're inspiring us.
Thanks,
So,
Rick.
and yeah, and so just for everybody's sake, we do hold we do our best to hold a peer connection every once a month. So stay tuned for future peer connections. And I would like to thank the Insurance Bureau of Canada for sponsoring this event. Without their sponsorship, these events might not continue. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all for participating and showing up. And I hope you've learned something from Wendy today. I know I'm inspired and energized to keep going with my goals. So I'm fully on board with being goal directed and just keep plugging away every day. So I appreciate being re-energized in that direction.
Way to go,
So,
Rick, and great questions, people.
Yeah,
Well, there are a
absolutely.
couple more comments. Angelina says you're a true inspiration, Wendy. And Hello says, so true, stay on the loss. I'm not sure what that means, but your dad did a good job raising you with good morals.
Yeah.
And there's Lisa who says, thank you, everyone. Very well done. Wendy and Wendy House says, thank you for sharing your story. And again, it's wonderful that you offer to come and speak to our group. I always find myself so inspired every time I hear you. You're phenomenal.
Anything I can do to help.
Thank you so much. And I think, Sherry, if we have no other housekeeping items, that we could end the meeting.
We don't have.
Okay.
Bye,
Okay, so
everyone.
thank you again, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
It was wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.